Are we introducing ourselves? Or
Pardon?
are we introducing ourselves?
We will. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's wait till everybody's.
We've got one to make sure. Anywhere. Plenty of room.
Hey, Mark. How are you guys doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm gonna go ahead and pass out. This is, yeah, I'm ready to pass out after lunch. Matt's gonna talk about, this sheet, but these are some of the ideas we got from the first Times Square. I know, I'm just, in the interest of time. These are some ideas that we got from the first Times Square meeting that we had.
So, we'll go ahead and start this meeting because I know we're kind of on a time crunch. So this meeting, my name's Chelsea O'Reilly. I'm the Public Works Manager for the town of Fort Myers Beach. We are recording. This is a public meeting. You're also on YouTube, so you'll be YouTube stars later today. So this is the joint meeting with Anchorage Advisory Committee and Community Resource Advisory Board. I think that's the correct. And so the emphasis of this meeting is the Bayfront parcel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let our team go ahead and go through and introduce themselves, and then we'll dive right in. So, one more thing. I'm sorry. This is recorded. Please speak into the mics when you talk, and you'll hear me yelling, Mike, 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 if you're not.
My name's Patrick Day. I'm the project manager of the project. We are with DRMP. We were selected by the town to oversee the whole Times Square and then these other two parcels that we're going to be working with. But before you begin, I want to just mention some other stuff, but let's continue for introductions.
My name is Paul Benvey with DRMP.
Yep, I am Matt Horton. We're with Insight, and we are handling the design portion of the project.
And I'm Rosemary Fusco. I'm an urban planner with Insight and Matt's assistant.
And one more.
Kay Molnar with Molnar and Associates. We're helping to facilitate the meetings, and you guys have probably gotten emails from myself and from Tracy Hayden on the road project. Sorry.
So I just wanted to mention where we're at in this process. We are been tasked at this period, portion of the project, with to get to a conceptual design, and this is a conceptual workshop. So what you're about to see is not design, it is ideas, and what we're hoping for is input from you folks, because we are not going to tell you what's going to be out there. We want to hear from you. We were given some instructions up front to start the process, to get you thinking, so anything you have to say, please let us know. We would like to get your comments back as quickly as possible. Kay will probably tie your thumbs together and step on them if you don't, because that's just who she is. So, any case, but that would really be helpful to us so we can meet our goals. We're trying to get some kind of final conceptual design by March of next year. So we really kind of need to get moving along with this. So we are also meeting with the branding company that just came on board, the branding consultant. So we're going to be tying in with it, whatever they do. And with that, I will just turn it over to our design experts.
Thanks. So a little background. The meeting we had this morning with the merchants in Times Square is the second of the design charrette meetings that we've had. The first meeting, we received a lot of input from that group as to what they want to see in Times Square, and everything from how they want it to look and feel to what types of benches they want to see, what type of lighting. Do we want to have public art, those types of things. That's all has all been recorded here in the sheet you have in front of us. This then was the guiding principle for us to go into design for the Times Square area. And what we've been tasked to do is to take these same principles and apply them to the two other sites that we have to design, one being Bayfront Park and the other being Bay Oaks. So that's kind of the background of what you'll see today is generated from these comments only, and we understand that outside of that group, no one has really seen the concept, so I don't want it to feel like we're forcing something on you. It's really what we call, the Jello plan, so it's very moldable. There may be pieces that you don't want to see, and that's the input we'd like to receive today. So I'll first kind of run you through some of these concepts, and you'll see how they appear in form from the Times Square meeting earlier this morning, and we can take a look up at the screen. There was a desire to have permanent shade structures in the square, and or not one approach, but one of two approaches that we have for that is what you see here, and this is to replace umbrellas and plastic chairs that sit outside of the Merchants Building currently. This is a pretty sophisticated system. It reacts to sunlight. It reacts to rain. So it really extends the merchant space out into the public space. Makes a lot of sense for there. But I'm showing you this because this may appear in the other two parcels as a shade structure for the general public. And we'll skip this, but that was kind of a testimonial. The other approach for shade, for general shade, is the shade sail. And quite possibly you've seen this before in other places, but it gives the opportunity to bring color or movement as the wind blows to the space, but also provide shade for the general public. This was a restroom, a self-cleaning restroom we looked at, which was specific to Times Square. And then we got into the what is kind of the foundation for this design work we're doing, and there was a little bit of I guess public input that says we love the arches, and so we took that, even though we don't intend to recreate the arches. We took something that may be recognizable to the people that have been here and remember those arches, and we use that as kind of a catalyst to design these signs and monuments that you'll see throughout the design. And this is just a view. It's building in from the eastern end as you approach Times Square, just showing you how this space could be transformed. And you'll see in just a minute that sign feature start to build in. We borrowed from Old San Carlos, from the streetscape. The consensus was to repeat some of those paving materials, the benches, the colors, so that the two spaces appear to be or become part of a cohesive, continuous space. You see the pavers coming in, they define the pedestrian way through the square. And what was really important here was, or in the Times Square, was space for public performance art. And with every good public space, you have people, and people tend to gather. This is yet another view, and I won't take you through all of these. Except for maybe this one. The merchants wanted an iconic feature, and we know that several times a year a stage appears there, and So we explored the possibility of that becoming something permanent. And maybe that's the spot where, when you're visiting, you stand at the stage and take your selfie. And this is very unique to Fort Myers Beach. And on the left, you'll see in a minute that tall feature becomes maybe another version of the clock that's in Times Square today. Maybe we rethink how that looks. But the point to these illustrations is that you'll see some of those same themes carry into Bayfront Park in terms of how the structures look. Kind of the same approaches to shade. So,
Feel free to ask questions, comments, concerns. This is an open dialogue.
yes, this and on top of that, a design workshop. I have my pens and markers and scales and trace paper. So we
Just
don't like what
Bill
we
Veach, one
see.
quick comment here.
Yep.
I've seen in some places traveling around that some plazas that are closed in, they'll put like cables across and put umbrellas. Now, not like your table umbrellas, but brightly colored umbrellas that are hanging from cables. It gives it a really nice look. I don't know about maintenance though, because
Yeah. No, that's a great observation. The shade sails that we showed you earlier, same concept. The reason they don't stretch in all areas across the square is because we still have to maintain access for emergency vehicles to a point down into the square. But you see here at the stage, we have some of the shade sails stretching out and touching the stage. That's the piece of the plaza that we can do that.
Sam Lurie for the record. The very first slide with you said the louvers adjusted for shade and rain.
Yes.
They're actually they adjust for shade, and then when they're closed, they provide a rooftop.
Right, yeah, really neat system because it can be controlled by AI, so
That looks
it
great.
can-
What's that called? Just automatic louvers?
the Structure with an X
Oh.
is the company, but really neat system. It can be powered completely by solar.
But it can also be manual.
That's one
It
of
can be
our
manual.
number one concerns is shade, because
Shade,
like
absolutely.
11 months out of the year.
Yes, yeah.
Bob Beasley for the record.
Mhm.
That particular style, would that meet hurricane codes? I mean, would you actually be allowed to build it?
Absolutely, yeah. The shade structure, it's a hurricane-ready assembly. The sailcloth or the sail structures are both removable and breakaway.
Okay, I was talking about the very first slide you had where it looked like more of a permanent structure coming
Yes,
out from
yeah.
the restaurant. That's
Yeah,
it. Okay.
the louvered canopy. Yeah, that is. It's I believe designed and manufactured in Florida. So
And what's the brand name of that again?
structure with an X.
Thank you.
And I'm not the salesman for that company. It just happens to be the one that we contacted.
now, Bill Veach, is it available in like a marine grade? Because the salt spray is pretty, corrosive.
Sorry, which one? Which
the
system?
the automatic one, is that available in
Yeah,
like a
it
marine
is.
grade?
It's all stainless components for the mechanical portion, and the rest of it's powder coated aluminum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
Any
been
warranty on that one?
Right.
It's been used in Isla Morada and Clearwater and a couple other places, so we could also get some more information on like how it acts, how the aluminum acts to the salt air if we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
25-year structure warranty.
Yeah.
I believe on that. Yeah. Right. So here we are at the Bayfront Park. Bayfront Park, for orientation's sake, here's the waterfront.
If you need to stand to look at these.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pictures, please
he's
do.
going to make this as
Yeah.
more of a
Moving around
workshop, so
outside.
these drawings
Yeah.
won't be shown up on the screen
yeah.
necessarily. So if you really want to see close-up, you might want to just kind of,
Yeah.
and he can write any comments you have on there,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Do you know the actual size of this lot for the Bayfront Park? You know what
Square footage or
Well,
dimensionally?
length and depth.
So the right-of-way is
It's only 8 inches.
is 60, I think. Yeah. 64 or 65 is the right-of-way width by 120,
Well,
roughly 120,
so
110,
it's 120 by 65 roughly.
roughly, right.
What is it with setbacks?
Talking to the mic.
Yeah, great, okay, great question.
Bob Beasley, one question, in case I have to leave early. I was most interested today in the Bayfront Park area, because being on the Anchorage Advisory Committee, we had discussed, we're looking for upland provider facilities. And we thought, since the dinghy dock and everything is already basically down there in that area, that would be a good area if the town was looking for their own upland provider to maybe use part of that for their facilities, and then the rest could be decoration and park and that sort of thing. So I didn't know if anybody had approached you yet about that.
We have not heard that yet, but that's the purpose of this meeting. We kind of were flying blind with these concepts. So I had the great fortune of designing this park originally, when, if you remember, 15 or so years ago, this was a parking lot, and it was obscured by trees. You couldn't see the waterfront. So council at the time decided they want a water feature and a shade structure. That's what we designed, and has been successfully, for the most part, used as a park since then. So these concepts, one takes the approach of providing something for children in the form of a small water park, water feature here. Plenty of bench seating for parents and people enjoying the shade. And then on the outside of that, or the back side of it, you see again this piece right here. This is borrowed from Times Square, one of the shade structures that's adjustable. It's quite a bit larger than the structure that's there today, recognizing that a lot of things happen here seasonally in concerts. And specifically concerts, we looked at having an event lawn. I know that during I'm blanking on the festival name, the music fest. Singer-songwriter, thank you. During singer-songwriter, this area is packed and people kind of makeshift sit around, but why not give a nice event space, event lawn for viewing bands that happen here? And then taking that one step further, another concept to consider is expanding that event space for larger events, backing that with a seat wall, but providing shade on that by inserting the FP&L solar trees. The solar program sends a really good message that a public entity is supporting that program. So that's where we are with the concepts. Both of them consider this floating dock system that was designed and really embrace the use of this as a public access for boaters.
And so some of the things we heard earlier today, and maybe this will help, is that everyone wants public art there and music, and that the plans should actually change to incorporate the area along the water that runs down towards the dinghy dock as well. So I think, well, I want to return back to what you said and ask if you guys have any ideas for specifics of what you need or what you had in a vision for what could be a good fit there for the services.
Well, maybe I'll let Catherine speak.
Sorry.
We just got hit with this and found out this could be a possible site. And
Yeah.
at the same time, we just found out this was going on. So
Yeah.
I'm a little in the dark.
No, these were done a little bit in the dark too. So we're in it together. Yeah.
What would that generally consist of? Upland services? Is that
Yeah.
restrooms, showers?
Yeah, what would you have in
Let
mind?
Catherine's the head.
Well, Catherine White, for the record.
right now our upland services are at Matanzas Inn, and they give us showers and two, and they have a room with laundry.
Okay.
The digging dock area would not change, it's right under the bridge, though we have talked about having another dock there, isn't that right, Chelsea? That's kind of thought to have it along that wall of this park, a secondary one, but why we're talking about finding a place that we own is our facilities, really two restrooms for 70 balls is not sufficient.
That's not sufficient. Right.
And Matanzas has been a very good provider for us, but they're not going to expand to 4 to 6 restrooms. So, you know, we're talking that would be a minimum. I would think we would need 4. We
Minimum.
would need a building where they would check in.
Is that so? Would you also want that the walkway along the water treated in a certain way so that you can carry your laundry from the dinghy dock? But it would be better if we could get the dinghies right here, so it would be direct. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That you wouldn't have
Yeah.
to carry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something ADA acceptable.
Yeah. Yes. Everything we do.
Always, yes.
Always universally accessible.
Ted Lawwell from the committee. Somewhere along the way, the inhabitants of the mooring field said that they would like to have a place to gather, as in a second floor room or something, in order to make sort of a clubhouse, if you would, for those who are in the mooring field for extended period of time. I have no idea what that would mean. I just would like to bring that back up because it was brought up to us.
Thank you.
And Sam, for the record, following up on Ted, they would like, air conditioning and Wi-Fi would be just the two of the main requirements on that. And also, if we were gonna do something like this, we were curious of how big a footprint we could have. It looks like you're going pretty wide there. Looks like there's not much setback there.
This is public right-of-way, so typically there's not an established setback building in the public
So
right-of-way.
council would get the vote on that.
Right,
basically.
right.
The, Bill Veach, the solar shades, solar trees, would those be just tied in FPNL, or would that be
They are grid tied. The benefit you receive is that you're helping to put green energy on the grid. But so there's no direct benefit to a building that might be there.
because one thing that would be probably useful for both the mooring field customers and the general public, if you could have charging stations for people.
Yeah,
And-
the FPL will, one of the options is you can include charging stations on these solar trees, and you can even get them with like a little chair so you can sit there and wait while your phone charges. It's options that they have on these FPL trees, and they put them in free. You don't have to pay for them. They get the benefit because they get the free electricity out of it, but you get the benefit in that you get some shade, and you can use it as an amenity to charge your phone and sit there, so.
And is there also an option for like a public Wi-Fi? Because I know when I travel overseas, my phone really doesn't work.
Yeah,
And you get a lot of
that
foreign
wouldn't be an
numbers.
FPL thing. That would not be connected to the solar tree. But,
Okay.
I mean, that's something that the city can consider, is putting Wi-Fi in these areas. But, and that's an option.
Would you prefer it to be a public Wi-Fi or a Wi-Fi that's maybe guarded and only the people that are mooring out there are using it? You know, you have a password on it.
You know, my feeling is make it public, because it's it's a gathering spot for people, and this is a tourist town, so everybody who comes here is a customer in one way or another.
Mark Kincaid, Coastal Engineering. I've been thinking about this for a while. I've attended the AAC meetings and heard them discuss this. And this location is a prime waterfront location, and I do believe that increasing the dinghy dock space, this would be a good location for increasing the capacity for the dinghy docks. But I've been reflecting on what the use of the upland would be, and there are currently 70 moorings, and we're looking at the possibility of expanding that by maybe another 20 or so, so you'd have a total of 90 moorings, and if they were all occupied, to provide a space for those 90 tenets of the moorings at a spot in the middle of all this activity may not be the prime location for that. And then let's say that we did say that we put restrooms for the mooring field use and we put the showers and the laundry facilities and a meeting room. How would you police that? It seems like you would be forever trying to keep the general public out of a place that's in the middle of where you want everybody to be. So while we really want to have this facility for the town to be brought onto the town to be able, for the town to be able to maintain that and use it as it's seen, maybe putting it in the middle of the place where we want all the general public to go may not make the most sense. So this is just my opinion. It's not anybody else's opinion. I'm just sharing this as I'm listening to everybody talk and my knowledge of the town, my knowledge of the mooring field. And it doesn't seem like that would be the best use of that space is to say this little postage stamp of real estate that's in the middle of everything can only be used by the mooring field people.
I don't think that was our thought, Bob Beasley, for the record. You know, the property is approximately 65 by 120. If you took half of that, that's 60 by 30, just roughly. And I don't know if we really need a
That's a
building
quarter of
that's
it.
that big.
That's a quarter of it, 60 by 30.
You know, our thought was to incorporate a mooring field facility into this. Maybe set it off to the front, to the side somewhere. The rest is all open. And, you know, you just have your facilities. And as far as the general public using it, the people that are in the mooring field are paying for the fall. You give them a simple 3-digit code, just like when we stay at the Galleon in Key West. They have all the facilities there, laundries, everything, and yet there's a bazillion people running around that place. It's just a code. If you're staying in the mooring field, you know the code, and those bathrooms are specifically marked that say mooring field facilities.
Yeah.
You know, laundry, this, that. And if you don't have the code, you don't get in.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
way, whoever's running that harbor master office for the town, they don't have to police it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's just our general thought. So it wasn't like we wanted to take the whole place, build a, 2-story structure and all that. I forget what the size at Matanzas, it's been doing it for years now, isn't very big. But their whole thing that runs out of that, I don't know. It's very small.
How long has that facility been in place?
You have to ask.
Do we know?
Mike.
Kathy Light for the record. It originally was at Salty Sam's, and then they moved it over here 2007, 8, something like that. 2007. So
And-
it's been 12 years.
And new construction, or was that
No, they
retrofit?
took one of their units. They
Okay.
actually check in at the motel office, and then it's and then there's a 2-story building that has the laundry, and then they took 2 units and made
Okay.
bathroom units.
If you had to guess, how large is that building? Square footage?
Tiny.
Tiny?
It's not very big.
900 square feet, 1,000? Not even that.
What's the ideal number of bathrooms we would want for 70 or 90 or 90?
We have 70 now. There was somebody that attended our, I don't really know the answer to that, but somebody that came to our meeting said 1 per 18? Was that what they said in the spring?
What the ratio was.
There
But they
is
wouldn't have to be separate.
I don't know
You
that
could
it
have
really
men's and
is
women's facilities,
set.
multiple showers,
Right.
multiple toilets.
Right.
But 2 is pretty small for our 70.
And to be clear, the 2 restrooms are also 2 showers. So if Kathy's, yeah.
It's a 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Bill, just a couple of thoughts. Is there, because I kind of agree with you, said, you need the facility, but, putting it right in the middle of this area might be difficult. And I know with like current codes, this is still going to be, an A zone maybe, that you probably have to build bathrooms up above a flood line.
You do.
So even a small facility, small square footage is going to look pretty massive. Is there any other options, like closer to where the dinghy dock is, under the bridge? Is that
There are none. So, one site has been brought up on Virginia Avenue, but me being a resident on the island, I would have to stick up for the residents and say we do not want that commercial intrusion into a residential neighborhood.
That's the canal that goes down by Bay Oaks?
No.
Where
No.
No, it's, Virginia is, yeah, where would I?
It's between that, what I said.
Yeah, it's between. Yeah, it's a right of way
It's
between two
Two
houses.
houses, so it's not the long, okay, thank you, I'm sorry. I've been to the mooring field many times. But I like.
parcel to this, but it's right,
Yeah, yeah, I don't think you're supposed to go down there now, right? Yeah,
Sam Lurie for the record. If there's no accommodations on the ground floor, you still have to go upgrade to have restrooms?
Storage, parking, access is the only
Is the
three
only
things
thing on
that
the
are
ground level.
allowed in a
No.
V zone or coastal A.
Well, if you went one story above that, you also could have a public observation deck or something on top of that that wouldn't cost much more to do. If you had a shaded area on top that could be open to the entire public, and it would be high up with a nice view of everything.
Mike Ratliff, AAC. It seems to me, as far as our Anchorage advisory situation, we don't really have any other choice, which I think is viable in terms of establishing such a thing. So I would hope that we can reach some sort of design and sharing of this facility, because I think has been pointed out by a couple of other people, lots of people utilize or will be utilizing this. If you're a boater, you're part of the public, you're paying to come here, and it would seem that we should be able to come up with a design that will not be overwhelming, but yet to a certain degree will satisfy both sides of this coin. Because I think most people will tell you that our current upland provider does a wonderful job, but the facilities are inadequate. And there has been talk for some time now about the town bringing this in-house. And this seems to me to be the most viable option. Yes, there are some shortcomings about where it is, but quite frankly, if I was to bring my boat in here, that's exactly where I would want to go. I would want the dinghy dock right there in downtown where I can access restaurants, other facilities, and leave my money here. So I think it provides a lot of advantages more than disadvantages. It would seem to me that the challenge is how can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we have a pleasant place for the general public while at the same time serving the mooring field, which does in fact have a real need for this kind of thing over a long term? So that's what I would, some wonderful points have been made here, but I think as in many public endeavors or even private endeavors, you don't get everything that you want. You have to be willing to sort of share. So I guess I see this as a plus if we can simply get the design down properly.
Bill Veach, okay. I was going to say, just one quick idea. Can it be integrated with the stage? I mean, could you put a stage below and then put a building above it that'll provide the shade? It makes a massive structure that blocks a lot of views, but maybe it's a way to use that storage space underneath for something besides just open space.
Sam Lurie for the record. Just a quick reminder that the people that are on the Anchorage are paying over $300 a month, and the ones that stay daily and weekly are paying more than that. So we are getting income from all those people that are out there. So we're trying to provide the best services we can for them.
Yeah, and one other item, since you brought it up, is, if the town does have their own shoreside facilities, then there would be no longer the need for a split with the income.
But it would increase the expenses, significantly as well. So I wonder what the trade-off would be as far as getting us more funds for the town.
Or grants, maybe, I don't know.
Good point.
And Bill Veach again, and also I think if you're going to put in a facility for the boaters, a public restroom would probably be useful too. Maybe something is separate, so one part is open, another part is secure.
So one thing that we posed to the previous committee that I'd like to hear some input from you all, is the concept of a Veterans Memorial. If it's a monument, if it's a flag, if it's a dedicated area, a bench, that has been brought up in the past, and I just kind of wanted to get your feel, because really this is the space that was mentioned during that time.
Yeah, there's some in the CRAB committee that it's one of their drivers is to get some kind of, all services memorial there.
I think the point with that, it could be something very small footprint-wise, something very large footprint-wise. So, I think you can start with something from the small side, could just be like a yard-arm type flag with the service flag, so you're talking about basically a flagpole signs, with, a base kind of like, following the same base that was shown for Times Square, or some other one where people could put commemorative plaques on, but it'd be a very, very small footprint, something larger. So, I always get hesitant when someone says Veterans Memorial, all of a sudden you say, oh, you're taking over the property. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I've taken some pictures of some memorials around as I've been traveling, and some parts of the world, like especially in Australia, every central plaza has a memorial. Usually it has the names of locals who have served or died serving the country. And they're usually very small and tasteful. It doesn't have to be a giant thing with angels and trumpets and whatnot.
Mike Rattler, for the record, are we saying this would be at the Bayfront Park?
Yes, sir.
Well, it would seem to me, if it's possible, that it would be better in the Times Square area. That's where you're going to get more foot traffic. Typically, more people are going to see it there, if it's even feasible. Because I think, looking at one of the designs, if you were walking down Estero Boulevard entering the area, if that would be a place to have it, or even near where the current clock is, I think you will get more people moving around and about seeing it if it's feasible to include it in that design, rather than down by the waterfront, where if all things would come to where we want, then maybe it wouldn't be as easily accessed by the general public.
Bill, I know that CRAB has been, discussing this for I don't even know how long. What other concepts have you all discussed over the past year or so in the visions that CRAB saw of this parcel?
Well, we had one of our concepts is to use in the paver blocks to do something that looked like you were looking into an aquatic scene, so that either by paint or by like the kind of tiles you see in a pool, that you would see, it'd be like you're walking from through mangroves or through, you're looking down into the water while you're looking at the pavers. Another thing we talked about quite extensively is the boardwalk. Because right now the town has the rights to the boardwalk there by Nervous Nelly, is my understanding is anyway. And this part isn't being used, but to connect that boardwalk from the dinghy dock, and as far as private industry is willing to take it, I think creates something that's really interesting. And in the walk, we suggested doing like a series of historical signs about things that have happened as you walk along from the Calusa to Ponce de Leon to, right down the line.
Sam Lurie for the record. I'm being repetitive and redundant. Just to clarify, get a better picture of this, what is current street or current walking level of the park right now, Bayfront? What is the minimum elevation to have the restrooms and to have that building, like above that?
We'd have to have.
Is it like 17 feet or is it less?
It depends on the zone and what the BFE
and if it's
is.
velocity or something.
We could assume that that you could look at Nervous Nelly's, and you notice that as you go in, the ground floor is only elevator and stairs on the ground, and then the level with the bar or with
it's
the
only
restaurant
about 6 feet up.
About 6 feet up that's where restrooms are. So taking that forward.
Yeah, but remember things changed recently, right?
They're changing all the time. Yeah,
so
right.
Don't knock. Yeah,
So that would
so
be
at a minimum,
important. That's a big
yeah.
difference. If it's 4 steps up or if it's 12 feet up, would be a big difference for us. But that would be important. The lower, the better, for sure.
Or I think Bill had a really good point about using the space underneath. The space underneath is the stage or a general shade structure for.
Yeah, because one other thing that would do is maybe an easier to contain some of the noise, because that's also an area where they get a lot of noise complaints. So if there's a way to direct that away from the residents by using the structure, that would be a good thing too.
This might give you an idea of on the ground what a structure may look like. That's today, and then this is framed up based on one of these concepts that has the same shade structures in the background as you would have in Times Square. But it may help visualize what a building might look like there, and how much of the street level view would either be preserved by an open space underneath the building or blocked by a building that sits lower.
That Nervous Nelly's grade where they're at right now, I mean, that wouldn't require elevator, or you know, slight ramp and a couple stairs is all that they have over there right now. If that grade
That's the
level.
outside area. That's the outside. When you go inside, you have to walk upstairs. And
Okay, it's
yeah,
about, I guess,
that's
it's
the
6 or 8
first-
stairs.
right. Yeah.
But it's not 10 or 12 feet. It's more like
it's probably more like
6 or 8.
like 6 or 8 feet.
Yeah.
They know, they went there for lunch.
Yeah, we know. Right.
Yeah.
We were scoping out the site.
All business.
And just for clarification, they are legal now, but you're saying things are changing.
Flood maps.
Flood
FEMA's
maps are
coming out with new
changing.
flood maps,
Right.
and that may affect whatever design, but of course will be to code.
Okay.
Yeah, it's likely that the best option for a structure there is to elevate it to almost a clear story underneath, so things can happen on the ground level, and then you access by elevator and stair.
And has anybody looked at whether it makes financial sense for the town to own the solar trees as opposed to FPL?
Yeah, that's not, if you're putting it back into their system, it's not the
it's not-
option.
it's not an option.
They own them and. they-
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we've always dealt with. There may be an option where you buy the trees, but whether you get FP&L to accept the power and they sell it back to you, if that's what you're talking about, I don't think you're gonna find that happening.
Really?
Yeah, because.
Make the economics work.
Right. Yeah.
And, because I know, like, FGCU has a big power field out there, and they went through court systems fighting FPL the whole way. It was really interesting. But I think what you're saying with the one thing, if you do put if we do put this up on the first floor, you will have to have an elevator. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that, so.
So to summarize, we have some voices who would like a kids park here. We have some voices who want a stage. We have voices who want building here. And one thing everyone agrees on is that water access should be prioritized, and that everybody wants more that area down by the water expanded and embraced, I think. So that's great news.
I think what Bob mentioned, we would not monopolize this at all. It seems like half of the half or 1/4 of it for a footprint would be more, that'd probably be more than satisfactory. That we could probably even take up less than half of the waterfront and get by with a 25-foot wide.
Okay. This is just a quick sketch that would show what a 30 by 30 building would occupy on the site. And if we can imagine, this is, to Bill's point, an elevated building, so the clear space underneath, that's in scale, that's what a person looks like underneath a building that large, or that small, however you want to look at it. It's a 30 by 30 floor.
And that would be the stage, like, for performances and the shade.
Stage could happen underneath. And I think you would preserve to some degree that view of the water at the pedestrian level. Above that, though, I don't think you could escape that being a massive structure.
If you could go flat roof on that and have it open to the public observatory, there's not a lot of places that people can go and look
Right.
out from elevation if
Right.
they're not paying to be at a restaurant.
Yeah. Or better yet, a kind of a wraparound porch and maybe a deck on the back.
Now, this, this is not owned by the town, this is a right-of-way, right?
This is right above.
Public right-of-way. Is there anything, did anybody look in the plating or anything to see if it's legal to
Would
put a
even
building, if
allow
there are
that?
limits,
I mean,
if the uses are limited?
that's a great question also.
Sorry, think about this as almost like a lighthouse here instead. That could be the Veterans Memorial, and then the big walkway sit area around the top. I don't know, just
Yeah.
another idea.
You hate
I
to
like
waste a rooftop if we have
Right.
all that area
Oh, yeah.
up high like
Yeah,
that.
but if it was something small in the center, and then that would be wide open,
Mhm.
people could, but it'd give them a reason to go up too. I don't know, another way to get the Veterans
Yeah.
Memorial in there.
Yeah, the views are amazing. Elevated views from this spot are amazing. Yeah.
I guess if you put a lighthouse on the water, make sure it's not like a real lighthouse.
Confused. Yeah.
That'd be cool, though. You could pull right up to the stage in the dinghy.
So, do you want to run through the Bay Oaks one just real quick so they can see what's being discussed?
Sure.
And CAB is at 3 o'clock, so we'll be going in depth into it then. But we'll skim through it just to kind of show how all three are tied together. And then we'll open it up for questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, input after that.
The Bay Oaks parcel, or the portion that we were tasked to look at, if you're not familiar, is what you see here on the screen. It is just beside the existing pedestrian entry into the complex. And again, with what we've put together for today, it's really absent that type of input that we received from the merchants at Times Square. So what we carried forward were some of those elements, the signage features, the materials, the lighting. And so we tested on the site 3 different approaches. One is very pedestrian-centric, which is it maintains only pedestrian access via this pathway into the park, and also incorporates a facilities building, a multi-use type building. And we wanted to test how large of a footprint for a building we could fit here, and it turned out to be around 2,500 square feet per floor if it's a multi-floor structure. The second concept explored what it would look like to provide a driveway entrance through the parcel, maintaining pedestrian connection through, but that would happen much like we just discussed at Bayfront Park. These buildings are elevated for flood, so access for pedestrian access happens underneath the building. And then the third concept that we tested was if this is a vehicle and pedestrian entrance only, and it's a grand entrance and it's gated, it still has some of those same elements in the form of monuments at the I guess it may look more on the street level like a gated community entrance, and we wanted to see how that fit on the site, and that's what the third concept is about.
So I want to make a comment real quick, just because a comment was made at the prior meeting. If the future of Bay Oaks is not the facility itself, but the potential redesign, could the upland services be taken in consideration at Bay Oaks campus, not necessarily this parcel, but as a whole. So I just wanted to put that out there because that comment was made earlier, and something for you all to think about. But like some feedback on this parcel, and pedestrian, vehicle, both, grant vehicle only. I mean, is there any comments?
Bill Veach, one thing I think, we have this enormous traffic backup. And if you put two-way access there, then people are going to go down by the school, try to beat the traffic, and come in. So I think that having two-way traffic is probably creates more problems than you want to have. An entryway, because the traffic is backed up, usually coming off the island down there. So an entryway would be would solve that problem. So no exit from that way, just an entry if you have a vehicle.
Do we have any potential dinghy dockage near Bay Oaks?
That would have to be considered in the back part of the parcel, not part of this group's review of this parcel in particular, but there are some mangroves back there. I think ownership, that canal, the Gulf Beach Road Canal, is private, so we'd have to look at the ownership of the mangroves and if any mitigation could be done and what could be done. But that's out of this team's scope, but I just wanted to plant that seed, again, because it was mentioned earlier.
That's a good seed because that is really close to Town Hall. That should be at least considered.
Yeah, there's a dinghy dock behind Tops, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
But it was tiny.
It can't, and half the time you can't even get to it.
Oh, really?
It's
Yeah.
too shallow there, and there's no real options. There's no real options to dredge that channel, as I understand it.
Right. So a couple things about these different three plans. If there is a facility building there, one of the ideas here was supposed to be make Bay Oaks more visible from Estero, because right now it's hidden back there, and I know the current layout is maybe something it's going to be changed, but if you put a facility building there, it seems like it's just going to be the same as if there was a house there.
We kind of heard that same
Yeah.
reaction
Yeah.
before, so that's
Yeah.
why we're like,
Although,
We were the same thing.
although we did take the liberty of using that structure to announce that this is unique, this is the park entrance. So the front side of that facilities building should be something that's almost like a welcome center, if that's the direction.
What's the purpose of the building?
Chelsea.
That same question was asked
Yeah.
earlier. Bay Oaks parcel, I mean, it could be for the non-active, it could be for the BOSS program, it could be the town's EOC center in the event of a hurricane. That kind of detail goes into the next phase of it, which council has provided funding this current fiscal year to get us to phase 2. So this project's moving forward. And that's really why we're here and asking your input on all of these parcels, because we've gotten the direction to move forward, and we continue to. This won't be a book on a shelf. Go ahead.
It's moving forward, but this may not be what you'll see. I don't want you to, what she just said, that building may not be there. These are just we're just throwing out ideas. I don't want to give you an idea, because we heard that thing about the building this morning, so.
Design is moving
Right,
forward.
design is moving.
Right.
On behalf of about 5,000 people, I'd like to throw in a comment about building a building. We just spent $9 million. It's a little off track, but we just spent $9 million on a library that hardly gets used, and I won't go into it, but I think we need to really consider carefully about adding recreational rooms when it's 1 block away. We have an almost unused building. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I think yes and no, because I mean, it's like here, 9 months of the year, a lot of unused things. But then I've also been at like classes, like you're in a yoga class in Bay Oaks, and there's a gym there, and people are playing ball, and balls are bouncing off of metal walls, and a little segregation I think would work. But I do agree that there are a lot of facilities here, not just public, that are probably underused, clubs and that kind of stuff.
Well, there's one less than a block away. Thank you.
Did I remember hearing that there was a consideration of looking at a master plan for Bay Oaks Park, or like re-looking at all the?
I know council met yesterday with CRAB, and they began discussions of a potential redesign of that area, but nothing's in stone. You all are very quiet. You're normally more talkative at your meetings.
Yeah, please.
We had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So
No, don't be.
I could have laid out 15 different ideas, but we just started.
Mike Ratliff, for the record. Just for clarification, Chelsea, you were saying that there was you tossed out the idea of the upland facilities for the mooring field being at Bay Oaks?
That comment was made earlier.
Well, I will be straightforward. No. It will not work. And in fact, we could probably be meeting here again in 10 years and still talking about how to get something like that done. So I'll be real straightforward. I don't see that as a viable alternative at all. I think we're wasting our time to even think about that as an alternative.
See, I trying to get comments. So that's what. Please. This is the time. Write it down.
Mike Ratliff, for the record.
Mike.
Going back, going back to some of the ideas we're discussing here, I think relate to a broader idea, which is, what is the quality of life going to be where you live? My wife is a volunteer at the library, and I go to the library quite often. I think it's a wonderful facility and does do more than, some of these things cannot be reduced to simple dollars and cents. They're about the quality of life in the place where you have chosen to live. And so I think when we discuss these kinds of things, that should be at least a part of what we are thinking about. It's like, where do we want to live, and what do we want it to be like? That's all I have to say. And that's enough.
Ted, you've been quiet. I know you want to say something.
Yeah. We're sitting here talking about making facilities available through the town for the mooring field. And I have heard for the last 2 years that the present upland provider is quite willing to do more than they're doing and make changes to accommodate us. I've never seen where that went or what is going, and I personally feel like that there's a provider there with a great deal of backup in experience and personnel, and that for the town to take over all those different functions, including policing the restrooms where the people in the mooring field will sell the code to someone else in order to let them into the facilities. I have been pushing that we try to improve our present provider circumstance and work on that before trying to have the town take it over. I kind of feel like it would be a disaster in the long run. So that being said, this would be lovely to have some great thing at this location, but I kind of agree with our engineer in the view of putting it there. Thank you.
Bob Beasley, for the record. I understand what Ted's saying, and they have done a good job, and maybe they would, build better facilities for the upland and all that. But one thing you got to remember underneath it all is the land. If you don't own the land, you don't control your destiny. So the town is going to be beholden to somebody to handle those facilities now and in the future. And as properties get more and more expensive, you never know what will happen. Somebody could come in tomorrow, buy Mantanzas, the restaurant, the whole thing, and change it and throw the town out as soon as that contract's up. That's my concern. I've seen it happen in other communities, and that's why I'm a firm believer in you need to own the land, not rent.
Just to add to that, what Bob said, we took bids, whatever, a year and a half ago, or every 2 years, or whenever we take the bids, there's not even anybody that even came close to being able to do what Matanzas. So even though they bid it, we're don't have a lot of choices right now.
Mark Kincaid, Coastal Engineering. So, just so we're clear, Ted, I'm not saying that the town shouldn't have property and have facilities on there that they control. The opposite. I agree. I think that the town should have property and facilities there because that will open up the concessionaire to everybody, not just the person that has the facilities that's close by the dinghy dock, but the taco place down the street could vie for the concessionaire of the, it just gives you a lot more options and more competition. The town would own the facility, like what Bob's saying, and control that, and somebody can't come in and say, well, we're changing plans, we're gonna kick you out, and you're not gonna have that next year. We would have that facility, we could maintain that facility, and someone else could run it. But it's not locked into one person. It would open up the competition to many, many more people who would come in and be able to provide those services.
So someone who's not into the Anchorage committee stuff, this is Bill Beach for the record. Just a couple of questions. Why won't Bay Oaks work? Is it because there's no place for a dinghy dock? Because it's too far away from the water, or is it a preserve?
Mark Kincaid, I could answer. If my kids were going to Bay Oaks, I don't think I would want the clientele that are in the mooring field to be going there to use the restrooms. That's one thought. The proximity from the mooring field to Bay Oaks is another issue. The dinghy dock currently that they would use is down by the bridge, so how would they get from the bridge to Bay Oaks? That's not a convenience for that. Right now they walk from the dinghy dock, they walk maybe a block to the restrooms. So it needs to be something that you could easily walk and get access to. And you have a use of Bay Oaks now that I don't think would mesh well with catering to the mooring field.
We also have good parking and trolley service at the current location in that general area.
Could you continue to park at Matanzas if we?
We have under the bridge parking that's public parking, but we issue permits for the Anchorage people.
Okay.
So I guess we'll open it up now to any of the parcels and any comments, concerns, thoughts, ideas, anything. Bueller?
One thing, first of all, I love the little real-time or rapid drawing that happens. That's pretty cool.
Me too.
But I was looking at the different parcels. I think it would be good to use elements in all of them. So I know there was solar trees down at Bayfront, and there were the sails over on Times Square. But it seems like something that would be the same, even if the stage structure is the same, or if there's some of those sails will also be used, so there'd be a harmony between all the different structures.
Yeah, and that is the intent. You see that object in the center. That's the kind of the approach to a sign that repeats all the way through. The colors, the color scheme, the materials. So yeah, that's exactly what we're after with the 3 parcels.
And just to point something, the branding firm was here this morning, and we went through all three parcels in depth with them. So they're on board. They heard some comments, thoughts. So really, I encourage you to put your thoughts and comments down on your paper, because Kay and her group are going to collate them and provide them to that branding firm. So really, this is a big picture project.
So Chelsea, can we turn in our pink sheet comments within the next couple days, or do they have to be done today?
I think there's a date at the top, at the bottom. Yeah, we figure within the week you can probably get them back to us. If they're later, just send them anyway. There's a box here, right here, or you can email them to me. That's my email address.
Just so you're aware that each committee is supposed to have a committee discussion of marketing and branding ideas. And then the chairperson of each committee would then meet with the marketing team to relate those ideas with passion from their committee. So for those committees who this is current cycle, we'll set that up. Might be by a video conference, but we'll set that up. If you haven't had that discussion yet.
I haven't heard from Norbert. You made no comments.
No,
You soaking it in?
No, if I have something, I'll put it on this little piece of paper.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to mention one thing. Bill, you were talking about how we tied it all in. Matt really didn't get a chance to go over that on the Bayfront site. He had put the louvered building in for the, where the stage area was, and he was thinking about putting the sails in there to provide shade. So it would be, we are really trying to focus on bringing one kind of a theme to all of these areas. It's just putting different things in each one as needed, so.
Do you want to run through a couple of the Times Square videos, the drawings and sketches, the ones that we haven't gone through? Because I think we've got a little bit more time.
Sure.
Feel free to ask questions, please.
The more shade, the better.
Well, I think we showed this one. There you go. All right. Do you want to do this one again?
The first time I saw these, my jaw hit the floor. I'm not an artsy person.
Well, but that just really says a lot about the different experience you have when the space is well defined. So when you feel perspective drawing you in, you feel edges guiding your line of sight and guiding the way you move. So those are just like the basics that we are taking into account when we look at a public space like this, and those elements are meant to be repeated in the other two locations as possible. But of course, that's form and function. So the function needs to serve the people who use the space, and these drawings are about the form. So we really want your opinion on how those form and functions can work together and what you want to see. And then, of course, what we're talking about, how you want to use the space. So.
That's awesome. That looks like McGregor Boulevard. Nice.
Is that I was gonna say, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
So,
Boulevard.
yeah. So the way we organize space in Times Square versus what it is today is we use the palm trees. Kind of came as a shock on the plan that we showed this morning. The same number of palm trees exist in the new plan versus the old plan. A lot of them are the same trees because we were able to preserve them in place. But we've used those to organize the space, and that's why they're more visible now. Whereas today you go out there and it's kind of lost. I mean, you do get a little bit of shade, and they're in clusters, but this really defines where you walk through the square.
Yeah, and think about it also if the louvers are closed and those spaces underneath there are all shaded, that big change from sun to shade that you're going to see as you're moving through the space,
Right.
it's really going to be defined.
And all the traffic, people won't be running over each other on the sides.
It'll help
have
guide.
Right.
some parameters to
Norbert's
traffic.
got something to say.
Yes, yes,
Come
yes,
on,
please.
Norbert.
Norbert Demars. The coverings, are they going to expand the area that the merchants have for seating?
They occupy the same space.
It's the same leasable
The
space
same
that they
20
currently
20
have.
feet or
It's
so.
And
just
are they
used in other-
independent of the existing buildings? Or are
They
they
are.
attached to the existing?
Independent. They have to be.
Oh, so
Thank
is that
you.
private
Yeah.
property, everything that's got the louvers?
No,
Is that?
no, that's public right of way.
It's,
Okay.
yeah, it's leasable.
But they lease it.
Yeah, they lease it.
Right, so if I'm in front of La Placa, I can't sit down under those louvers because they're using that area.
Yeah.
So that really isn't open to it's open to the restaurant patrons, but not the public?
Instead of an umbrella, it's more aesthetically pleasing to look at that.
And we are expanding the shaded area around the center where we are going to put some shade areas there because one of the things we've got pictures, the benches right there. There's nobody sitting in the benches because you can't. It's too hot.
Yep.
So
It's good
this
reason.
whole area is going to be shaded now, and the walls will be brought into place. They're not going to be wavy walls. They're going to be different levels so you can sit on them, and also they're going to be separated so that people can't sleep on them either, because that would be an issue. So, but you can see that when it comes through here. You'll see the shade structures up on top.
So this is mainly going to benefit the restaurants that are using these. Are they I guess that's a whole different subject, whether their rent goes up, because if you want to sit at La Placa, you can't just sit there and not order food and drink, and that's where the shade's going to be, coming out from from the restaurant areas that are leased to them.
The shade will
But
be
that's in the
continuous.
square, that's
this
like.
is in the-
Yeah, that one's in the square. The
Sale
other one you
shades
showed.
Right.
is what you
Yeah.
got, yeah.
But there is leasable space on both sides as you go down each corridor. Not all of it is used.
Yeah.
Not
There
all
will
of
be
it's
some
leased.
open
There
public
will be
areas
some,
between
yeah.
restaurants
Right.
and extending
Absolutely.
further out.
Especially, on the western side of the street, I believe. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So not all of it will be limited just to the patrons of restaurants, but
And I'll tell you, I really like the idea that you're going to be putting shade in that won't create dead air.
yeah.
So,
Right.
It's open, because, being in the shade with no breeze is no picnic. And I do like the kinetic, I assume that's a kinetic sculpture.
It is.
so being that you brought that up, thank you for that lead-in. The question, did you put it on their sheets too?
Yes.
Okay, there's a very important question that we want, top of your pink sheet
Yeah.
is, I don't know if somebody wants to read it, but the clock. We are looking for an iconic feature, and is that iconic feature a clock, a rendition of the current clock, or a more modernized version like what is shown? You have an example of what a modernized version of it could be, don't you?
You're going to change the name to Kinetic Square?
Thank you for that lead-in. What do we like?
It
Do
is-
we like it
it
called
is
Times
Times
Square?
Square.
Do we like it to be called Times Square? Do we foresee a change? Do we like the clock? Do we not like the clock?
So that is a clock. Yeah. It's a kinetic clock.
Oh, it is a kinetic clock. Times
so you
Square.
see it at night.
I wasn't sure what it was.
At
Thank you.
night, it's possible that we could project the image of the time, maybe the date and time on
Among
that.
other things.
Right, right.
I think it's kind of interesting, because I remember when I first moved here, it seemed like it was a little presumptuous calling the little pedestrian mall Times Square. And then to see the little clock was a little funny. But then once you live here a while, it becomes just part of the culture.
Anybody else? Times Square clock, comments? Please?
I like it.
That's very open. I asked like 3 questions in there.
If you're gonna change Times Square, you're gonna change the name Fort Myers Beach to Estero Island. It's been here, everybody knows it. I say you keep it. That's my personal opinion.
Keep it as
Times Square and have a clock in it.
a clock or the current clock?
Well, it could be something new, more modern, sure.
Okay. Please, if you, at a minimum, if that is the only thing you answer on this piece of paper, please.
Okay.
It was crickets after the first meeting that we had with the merchants, and just no feedback on this iconic feature, and that's, that
Well,
is
this
what
new look, or any new look would be great. Everyone that goes down there that takes selfies and pictures, that sends all over the world to all their friends and family,
That's right.
there's a clock and a pier. And this would definitely add to it. It wouldn't block any of the view of the waterfront, but it would really add to the ambiance down there for sure.
One of the other things that the merchants brought up was to have something have the gateway signs into the Times Square, so that people understood that was the Times Square area, coming from the south, and then also on that San Carlos Boulevard end. So, and there was talk of possibly putting some smaller clocks or some type of recognition, maybe the newer clock at those areas. So those were some ideas that were thrown out also, in addition to keeping the old clock.
Yeah. Might as well paint a clock that's always 5 o'clock, because, one thing that you're talking about, like a selfie spot that I've seen that was really popular, is when you paint like on a wall or a backdrop some butterflies,
Yeah.
and people stand in front of them, and they're all over social media.
Matt said the same thing, and we were looking for spots. Can you think of any good spots to do that? That's what I talked him off the ledge, because I was like, I think that's a little too aggressive. But if you're in, then we're in.
'Cause you think of the angel wings that you see, anyone who's been to Nashville has the picture in front of even though it's not in Nashville, it's right outside. but maybe that selfie spot is somehow integrated with that stage, and that somehow frames the sunset view.
It wouldn't go with this, but mini arches. I know people that have been coming here their whole life got pictures when they were kids with the arches, but that's probably not the right theme for that.
Although the arches aren't going to be, well,
That's
currently not going to be
more-
far from this.
Yeah. they're gonna
Just
be
in Crescent Beach Park, yeah.
Crescent, yeah.
But there's also down on Old San Carlos, there's, the pirates and those kind of things that people stick their head in. I don't know who maintains those. They're part of the town or somebody else.
It's private property.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, write comments, we're gonna be here. I mean, the next meeting starts at 3, which is board cab. Write your comments down on those papers, get them to Sella Molnar in the next, by the deadline. Anybody have any final comments, thoughts, concerns, ideas?
Mike Rattler for the record. I do have a question going back to the Bayfront Park. If we were to build such a structure that had, were raised up off the ground, can we utilize that under area for something like for example, like picnic tables, benches? I know we have a cruisers appreciation dinner or day each year for food, so we could utilize that on a temporary basis for something of that nature, right?
Storage, parking, and access, as long as it's not enclosed and as long as we don't do any permanent, structures underneath there, yes.
And the stage thing that was mentioned before.
We'll look into the
events.
stage thing and make sure, because we still have to meet the elevation of the actual building, but absolutely.
Stage thing could be temporary, however, you could have lighting and sound, you could have all that stuff down there ready to go, plug in. Right?
Flexible space, yeah.
And that's, go ahead.
And the Bayfront Park, do you need emergency vehicle access through there? Like you do in Times Square?
Not currently, no.
20 foot is the requirement, a 20-foot plane, so.
In Bayfront?
Well, and it's a 20-foot in general is what the fire department says is their access, is the minimum that they need to get a fire truck in, so.
And do they need to get that down Bayfront Park?
We'll ask them,
If there's a building there, they probably need to get it down there.
unless it's sprinkled.
Well, the buildings at the end, Nervous Nelly, they're served
so they
from the
get
street
right.
side, so, and there's hydrant.
Hydrant right there, yeah. Well, thank you all for stopping in. We greatly appreciate it. And again.
Speaking of Cruises Appreciation, keep your badges.
Well, actually, if we could have those badges back, because we may be meeting with you again, yes.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
However, for a small fee.
Good try, Kathy.
For sale at the gift shop.
I tried. You can either drop your comments here in the box or email them.
Later. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm a donut.